What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats of every one of the weapons in Modern Warfare. And in today's episode, we're going to be getting back into the LMG category and covering the MG34. Now the MG34 has a base damage profile that is equal to all of the other LMGs in the game. This is 3128. However, we do get an upper torso multiplier that takes our upper torso damage to 3430, meaning if we are shooting them in the upper torso, this is going to be a 3 to 4 shot kill. As for headshots, this is also standard for the LMG category. This is a 1.49 times multiplier, taking our headshot damage profile to 4642. And this means headshots are often helpful, but you can't get that 2 headshot kill up close. Our rate of fire with this is the fastest in the LMG category at 870 rounds per minute. And this means, since it has the same damage profile as the other LMGs, but a much higher rate of fire, we have an insane time to kill potential of 138 milliseconds in the 3-shot kill range and 207 milliseconds in the 4-shot kill range. This gun is tied with the Odin as the fastest killing full auto gun in the entire game, excluding headshots. So that's definitely one of the biggest upsides to this gun. It absolutely melts people basically instantly. When it comes to our ranges though, the 3-shot kill range with the MG34 is about 32 meters or so, and this isn't the greatest for LMGs. This actually is pretty bad for an LMG, but at the same time, even in the 4-shot kill range, you've got a crazy good time to kill potential. As for suppressors, lightweight will reduce this by 25%, and the monolithic will increase your range by 7.5%. Now, when it comes to hardcore, the MG34 has an infinite one-shot kill potential, but beyond that roughly 32 meter mark, you have to be hitting an upper torso or headshot in order to get that one-shot kill, whereas within that maximum damage range, it doesn't matter where you shoot them, it will be a one-shot kill. Moving on to hipfire, as you can see here, we've got pretty standard hipfire for the LMG category with this, and that is to say that it is pretty bad, and you generally don't want to hipfire this gun unless you're basically point blank. As for idle sway and also iron sights, I think this has one of the worst iron sights in the entire game, but when it comes to idle sway, you can see that it's not so bad. Your gun will move around a little bit, but it's very manageable. And when it comes to recoil, we've got excellent recoil properties here. It kicks basically just straight upwards with very little side-to-side bounce as well. This is extremely easy to control and predict. You just have to pull down slightly on your aim as you're shooting, and you should have no problems with this. Getting into our handling stats, our aim down sight time really sucks, but it's pretty standard for LMGs in this game at 467 milliseconds. Keep in mind, a lot of guns can kill you literally twice before you can even aim down sight, which is kind of ridiculous. So definitely not the type of gun you typically want to rush around with. Also, our sprint out time is quite slow at 350 milliseconds for our standard sprint out time, and really slow at 500 milliseconds for our tactical sprint out time. Moving on to magazine capacity, this is 50 rounds with 100 in reserve. And for our reload time, I don't know what to talk about while this is reloading since it takes so long, so I guess I'll just plug my Control Freak code. If you guys are interested in buying some Control Freaks, you can use my code exclusive for 10% off. But now that the reload is done, we can see the reload time is the slowest in the entire game at 7.76 seconds. This is so painfully slow. In a lot of cases, you're just better off dying and respawning. You'll be back in the fight faster depending on the map you're playing on. Now, if you wanted to, you could speed that reload time up with sleight of hand. This will cut it down to 5.59 seconds, which is a good improvement, but this is still one of the slowest reloading guns in the entire game, even with sleight of hand. When it comes to our movement speed, this is very slow, even for an LMG. It's the slowest moving LMG in the game, and I think the slowest moving gun in the game at 83%. And it's a similar story with our aim down sight stray speed. This is ridiculously slow at 32%. So that almost wraps it up for the base stats that you need to know about the MG34. However, there's one other thing that's very important to note here. This is another one of those guns that does have an open bolt delay for the first shot fired. So when you initially pull the trigger, there is a pretty noticeable delay from when you pull that trigger to when the gun actually goes off. This is extremely difficult to calculate with absolute precision, but we are looking at well over 100 milliseconds for our open bolt delay on this. So that is something you definitely have to be aware of. But now that we have all that covered, it's time to move into the unique attachments that this gun has, and it doesn't have a ton of them. Let's kick it off with the barrels. The first barrel we have access to is the FSS Brute barrel, and with this one, we get a 20% increase to our damage range, which is a nice boost. On top of that, we get improved bullet velocity, which makes it a bit easier to hit those moving targets at longer ranges. And these upsides do come at the cost of aim down sight speed, Our new aim down sight time with this barrel is 517 milliseconds, which is 3 frames slower than our base aim down sight time, and this is extremely slow. So if you are going to use this barrel, I do highly encourage you to use some kind of an attachment that will offset this aim down sight reduction. As for the next barrel, this is the FSS Stubby barrel, and with this one, we get increased movement speed. It increases your overall movement speed by about 3%. And on top of that, our aim down sight time is improved by about 4 frames. It's now going to be 400 milliseconds for your aim down sight time, which is a very, very noticeable improvement. The downsides to this are a loss of bullet velocity, which actually also decreases our range by about 20%. This is a very noticeable reduction to our range, and that kind of sucks. But on top of that, we also lose out on bullet velocity, which if we have a look at the comparison here side by side, you can definitely see that there's a bit more recoil with this barrel, but it's still very, very predictable and controllable recoil, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. The main concern with this barrel is that 20% loss to your range. But finally, this brings us to the FSS Elite barrel, and I think somebody fell asleep while creating this, because statistically speaking, this is actually just a clone of the first barrel, and the stated pros and cons have absolutely nothing to do with how this barrel performs. So ignore those pros and cons. This is literally a clone of the FSS Brute barrel. We get a 20% damage increase, and our aim down sight time is decreased down to 517 milliseconds. It's not increased like it states. So this isn't necessarily a bad barrel. It's the same as the Brute barrel, but it is extremely misleading. So if you are looking to improve your aim down sight time, do not choose this barrel. Now, moving on to the other unique attachments to this gun, these are the extended belts, and the first one is the 75 round extended belt, and with this one, our aim down sight time is actually slowed down by 1 frame, so it is noticeable, and our overall movement speed is reduced by 1%. As for the next one, this is the 100 round belt, and with this one, we get the same aim down sight time as the 75 round belt, so it does reduce it a little bit from the base, and our overall movement speed is reduced by about 2%. Overall, I definitely recommend using these extended belt attachments if you've got them unlocked. You'll notice in a lot of the gameplay in the background, I wasn't using these, and that's just simply because I got this gameplay before I reached that level. But I do recommend it simply because the reload time is so painfully slow with this gun. So now that we have all that covered, it's finally time to move into some great attachment combinations and recommended class setups. For the first one, this one really suits me because I like being aggressive, and even though this isn't a gun that isn't really designed for aggression, you can stack it with the right attachments. This one is focused on aim down sight time, so we have that tack laser, which helps with our aim down sight time. We've got the GI mini reflex, just because I basically refuse to use the iron sights on this gun. We've got the no stock attachment, which is also going to help us with that aim down sight time and our movement speed a little bit. Stipple grip tape as well to help with aim down sight time and sprint out time. And then finally a 75 round belt, just because I don't want to have to reload too often. Taking that into an example class setup, we've got an X16 as our secondary, EOD for perk 1, Hardline for perk 2, and Shrapnel for perk 3 combined with those thermites so I can take out tanks a lot more effectively in ground war. As for our tactical, this is just a stim shot. For me and my playstyle, this is my preferred class setup, but we've got another one that is more designed to really take advantage of the intended strengths of this gun, and that is locking down lanes and absolutely destroying anything in your path as long as you're already aimed down sight. So with this, we are going to be using the FSS Brute barrel to increase our range as well as bullet velocity, which is great. We've also got the tack laser just to offset that reduction to our aim down sight time and also to give us some extra aiming stability. Once again, we've got that GI mini reflex, just my favorite optic to use, and I'm definitely using an optic with this setup. We've got FMJ on this, so we can punch through cover if an enemy manages to make it behind cover, but on top of that, we can take streaks out really easily with this setup. And finally, we've got that 100 round belt so that we can really be putting a lot of rounds down range without having to reload all the time. Taking that one into an example class setup, we've got the Desert Eagle as our secondary. Perk 1 is going to be Kill Chain, combined with Hardline in Perk 2, so we can get those streaks up really quickly, and they will just stack really fast as well. And on top of that, we're using Tune-Up, because with this class setup, I actually kind of like stacking it with the trophy system, because we aren't going to be mobile with this. We're basically just going to be sitting in one spot, completely shutting an area down. So if people want to start throwing nades and stuff at you, we don't have EOD, and this is where those trophy systems come in. As for our lethal, this is actually going to be a Claymore because, again, we are going to be quite stationary with this class setup, so it is nice to have that peace of mind knowing that you've got a Claymore watching your back, and at the very least, it will alert you to an enemy that's approaching. Finally on this, our tactical is going to be a stim shot, just because that is my preferred tactical. But with that, that finally wraps it up for today's gun guide on the MG34. As for my thoughts on this gun, I think it absolutely excels at being an LMG. This is one of the better LMGs in the game, as long as you like LMGs and you're totally content with not moving around very much. So credit where credit's due, but at the same time, it just doesn't really suit my playstyle, so I personally don't use the MG34 all that often. I just recognize how good it is at what it does. Of course, though, I'd like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think about the MG34? Also, if you guys have missed any of the previous episodes of Gun Guides, I will leave a link to the playlist down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.